Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 36 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Today we're going to be talking about why you procrastinate, how you can stop procrastinating, and what worked for us. By the end of this episode, hopefully, you guys will not be putting off the important tasks that you need to be doing in your life. Why is your life not what you want it to be? Because you is procrastinating, my boy or girl. So by the end of this episode, I hope that we can change that. Let's jump right into it. What is procrastination?
I mean, I don't have the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition with me, but it's, putting things off to a later date because you're too lazy to do it.
Actually,
That
is very funny you say that.
Am I wrong?
Procrastination is the act of putting off something you said you would do for no good reason. That is the best definition of it. And actually, oddly enough, I was doing some research into this because things that involve the brain and why we do things can be very complicated. And it takes a lot of research and study to actually understand it. And one of the first findings I looked at was the fact that majority of people actually correlate procrastination with laziness. But the two aren't the same. Laziness is the lack of energy and typical apathy towards doing a task. You don't want to do anything when you're lazy. That's laziness. Procrastination is knowing you need to do something, wanting to do it, but then either being stressed or worried about it, and then doing something else instead. That is procrastination.
I get your point, but I have a question. So, suppose that I want to go to the gym, and I say I'm going to go to the gym, but then I'm like, I'll just go tomorrow and I just watch Netflix at home. Would you consider that procrastination?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting.
Elaborate.
The way I see it is, obviously, you're not wrong in saying that you put the task of going to the gym off so that you could watch Netflix. But if you flip the script and look at it from the perspective of, is this laziness? You were supposed to go to the gym, but then you didn't feel like going to the gym, so you stayed at home.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is...
no, I chose to watch Netflix instead of go to the gym.
Well,
I think that...
I would say if you're talking about the attitude of somebody in that situation, typically somebody watching Netflix is not procrastinating from going to the gym. Well, to be fair, it could be anybody's game, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that they can, but don't always go hand in hand.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I'd say that they can certainly relate to an extent. But it is important to understand that they're not one and the same. Because I'd say that all of us have situations where we're lazy, where we wake up on a morning, it's Monday, it's cloudy, it's raining, you look out the window, your energy's low, you didn't sleep well last night, got into a fight with your friends, and there's work to do, but man, I just don't want to do it right now. I'm just going to relax today. That is how I would characterize laziness, whereas procrastination in my eyes is... I have this essay due on Friday. I should really get to work on this. Man, I'm really worried about this essay. Let me just relax by watching TikTok. And then you scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and then a couple hours later, oh man, I should really start my essay, but I'm hungry. Let me go eat. And then you come back to it later, and then it's getting late now. I should probably get some rest so I can get a fresh start tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. And that's what happens, right? And let's be honest, everyone has gone through procrastination in their life at some point.
Yep.
Everybody has. You, me, him, all of us have gone through procrastination. So the way I see it is, it's a universal experience. So clearly there have to be universal solutions. Everybody has thought about ways to combat it, right? But first, you have to ask yourself, what exactly is it in the brain? How does procrastination take place? And I found an interesting study that talked about it. And essentially, when you are faced with a task that you have to do and you're stressed about it, the moment you realize that there's a deadline, the amygdala in your brain that is responsible for releasing fear chemicals such as adrenaline when you face a challenging situation, it essentially lights up and activates a state of panic in your brain. So it releases all these chemicals like adrenaline, for example, and now you're worried you can't get this assignment done. So now you're in a flight or fight response and you freeze up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So you run away. It's natural. That's what your brain was built to do. Right? However, unfortunately, in this situation, the deadline is not something that will kill you, but your brain can't necessarily recognize that, and it's just worried thinking, oh my God, there's a deadline coming. We got to run. And it's fear that leads you to procrastinate. And funny enough, the prefrontal cortex in your brain, which is typically used for long-term decision-making and logical thinking, those impulses should be calling the shots for you and saying, oh, we have an essay due, we should get to work. But once the amygdala takes over and starts sending panic signals, those signals override the impulses coming from the prefrontal cortex. So there really is a scientific reason behind procrastination. It's inherent in our biology. But that doesn't mean that we have to be victim to it, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we can do to get over it. But, I mean, what are some of your experiences with procrastination? I'm sure you have some fascinating stories.
For me, procrastination, I'm a serious problem, bro. It's a detrimental problem.
Well, when was it worse for you? Let's be honest.
Like, when was the worst time, or when was it worse in my life?
In your life, when was it worse?
I feel like...
Or, you know what? Do both. First, when was it, like, worst period-wise? And then second, the worst instance of procrastination. Oh, my God, I already know what it is. But you know what? Go ahead.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. You know what? Fair play. But I think I turned that into a learning moment, or a good moment in my life.
Yeah.
But, okay, we'll start with period-wise, I'd say grade 11 and 12, 10 to 12. That 3-year period.
Okay.
I know that's a pretty big chunk of my life considering I'm pretty young, but point being that section, I was not in the mood to do work. I'd really put things off to the very last minute. So in Canada, or at least in BC, I don't know how it really works across other places, we have a class called Careers that you have to take. Careers 12. Necessary for graduation. Now, me, being the smart guy, I thought, you know what? I can do this online. It'll be so much easier. I'll get an extra free block, so I'll have more spare time for my actually difficult classes. So I was taking it in grade 11, and then I just never did it online. I put it off, and I was like, all right, you know what? The deadline's up. I'll just do it next year during grade 12. Grade 12 rolls around. Oh, man, by winter break, haven't even started the course. Or no, within the first 2 months of school, I was like, oh, man, you know what? I'll start it during winter break. Winter break comes and goes like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'll do it during spring break. Spring break, come and goes like that. I'll do it in May. I'll do it in June. Guess what? There are 2 weeks until the deadline of the course. This is a 6-month course. And I haven't even started the first assignment. 6-month course. And I have 2 weeks, and it's necessary to graduate. I remember the feeling I got when I got called down to the counselor's office. She sat me down, and she says, my friend, you're cooked. Now, obviously, my counselor didn't say that. But what she did say was that it's basically over. She said there's absolutely no way that you can get the course done. And then I said, listen, I'm going to, talk to the teacher. I'm going to do whatever I can. And she's like, it's basically not possible. But she said, my counselor's kind of new. So she was like, I'll talk to some of the other counselors and see what we can do. So I go back to my class, and I'm just sat there thinking, man, I'm not going to graduate. Because that's the situation I was in. I'm not going to graduate. And then I get called back down, the next day. And my mom got a phone call as well. So, from the school saying, hey, your son's not going to graduate. And now she was scared as hell, And the biggest fear for me was that I had applied for university. So if I didn't graduate, I would be taking a gap year and I would get my offer rescinded. So that was my biggest fear, was that I'm going to get this offer rescinded. I go down to the office, sit down, and now it's a big scene with 2 counselors and the vice principal. They sit me down and they're like, you are not going to graduate. They told me straight to my face. They said, it is physically impossible. No one has ever done it. Literally, one of the counselors pulled the card of, in my 20 years of teaching, nobody has ever done it. And she said, it is absolutely impossible. There's no way you can do it. Nobody's ever done it. The vice principal, he told me, he's like, you need to start making plans because you can't go to university. There's absolutely no way. I finished a 6-month course in 1 weekend. In 3 days. 3 days. I did a 6-month course. I know that any of you out there might not believe me. Many of you out there may not believe me and might think I'm lying. I put it on everything I love that I did that. And I am so proud of it. Not the fact that I put it off to the last moment, but because I had to do everything in my power to correct the mistake I made. And I like to joke about it, I say, I defied the impossible, which I did. So lesson number 1 of this story is don't let anybody tell you what's impossible or not. You decide what's possible. And I mean that very seriously, because in that moment, no matter how much people told me, you can't do it, I wasn't going to accept it. Like, I was arrogant and stubborn, and I said, there's no way I am not going to university next semester. There's no way in hell that's ever going to happen. So I stood on my business, and I got the course done. I made it work. And also, I don't think she'll ever watch this, but thank you so much to the teacher who was marking my course, because you're a legend and a savior. So thank you so much. But point number 2 of the story is don't leave things to the last minute, because you put yourself in predicaments that you didn't need to be in, right? You cause yourself completely unnecessary suffering to complete the necessary suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Because think about it. Usually you procrastinate something that is usually going to be painful. For me, I didn't want to do the course. But in reality, regardless of when I did it, it had to get done. Right? So you're avoiding a pain that's inevitable.
Yeah.
And you cause yourself so much pain down the line. Because I remember every month of that year agonizing myself every night, wondering, am I even going to get this course done? Am I even going to get this course done? Over and over and over. And I caused myself 100 times the amount of pain that I really needed to feel if I had just buckled down and done the course as I should have. So procrastination is just delaying a problem or an issue or work or something that you're afraid of for a prolonged period of time and causing yourself more suffering than you actually need.
And it's crazy that you brought it up like that, because you are more likely to procrastinate tasks that invoke negative emotions in your mind, like stress, anxiety, depression, worry, all those things that come to your mind when you're thinking about a task. If a task invokes those emotions in you, you are unlikely to start on them. And there was actually a study done on university students. And the study showed that university students, when they saw the deadline approaching, began to get more stressed out about the assignment. But now you'll also recall that I just said that assignments that make you feel stressed out, you're more likely to procrastinate them. But as you get closer to the deadline, you start to stress more. So now you procrastinate
more.
And then you stress, and then you procrastinate, then you stress, and you procrastinate. You go in this full circle until the last day before the deadline. Either something in you snaps and you're like, damn it, I have to do this now or else I'm failing, like you did. Or, for a lot of people,
They never do it.
they never do it. So the problem is, you could have eliminated the problem very, very early on. But based on how you acted in the situation and how your brain led you to act, you failed to do so and let the problem become much bigger than it needed to be. And it's so ironic, because I think that everybody's experienced that, especially when it comes to school, right? You'll have a very stressful assignment. For me, I remember in my second year, it was a chemistry course. Oh my God. The assignments from this chemistry course, if any of you go to university, I don't know if they use this in other areas. If you've ever used it before, you can tell me in the comments, but there's a website called Laan Kappa. Anyone who's ever taken a chemistry course and had to answer these questions on Laan Kappa, I understand your suffering, because this stupid website gives you only limited number of tries on each question, obviously, but when you get it wrong, if you use more tries, like let's say you have 5 attempts, if I use 4 of them, I lose 10% of the question. Like, even if I get it right, I lose marks. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So the more tries you use, the less points you get. But also, it was just one of the most stressful sets of assignments in my entire career of university, because it was so daunting to me. So I kept procrastinating until the day before it was due. Every single week, without fail, I didn't do the Laan Kappa until the day before it was due. And I spent 4 to 6 hours chained to my desk working on this stupid chemistry assignment that I probably could have got done in 20 to 40 minutes a day if I had spaced it out like 3 or 4 days before the deadline. But instead, I made myself sit there agonizing for hours because I procrastinated. So we all do it, right? It's just a natural fact about us as human beings. Even if I tell you this is how you stop procrastinating, I guarantee you a lot of people are still going to procrastinate. In fact, some of you will listen to this entire episode and right after think, you know what? I got to get my life on track. what's the first thing you think you should do? Okay, I got to clean the dishes. That's what you're thinking right now. I'm reading your mind, okay? You and I are vibing on 100. You're thinking, I got to clean the dishes, or I got to clean the house, or I got to go for a run, whatever it is. Then right after you close this video, you are going to go on some other social media and then not focus on doing what you need to do. And you're going to say, okay, I'll do it in 5 minutes. 5 minutes go by and you're going to keep scrolling. So listen to me when I talk to you right now. You need to stop. We all need to stop and actually get it together. Because the longer you put something off, the more stressful it becomes and the more unlikely you are to do it.
You know what? How about this? We're going to do a little Brighter Horizons exercise. If you're watching this video, you are now obligated to go do something. Something productive that you've been putting off right now. Don't even think about it. No seconds. 3, 2, 1. Click off the video and go. Just go right now and do whatever it is you need to do. And now that you're done that, you're back at the video. Okay? Don't come back. Those of you that didn't do anything, click off the video and go do something.
And those of you that didn't do anything, drop down and give me 10 push-ups. That's what you have to do. That's your task right now. I don't even want you to continue watching this episode until you do 10 push-ups. And you know what? For those of you that did your task, still do 10 push-ups. Exercise is good for you.
Yeah. The point is, the second you feel I should do this, just do it. That's what I found to be the savior. You know, everybody made fun of Shia LaBeouf and said it was a meme and said it was this and it was that, and we all thought it was just a meme. Just do it. Like, I can't believe that we didn't realize how right this guy was. Like, I think, again, we were all still growing up, but the fact we made a meme out of this and didn't take its meaning to heart is crazy. Because just do it. It's so simple. Like, I watched a Prince A video, and I think he was talking about it, where, actually, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it was, yeah, it was. And he said, if you ever want to do something that, you know, you don't really want to do, give yourself 3 seconds and then do it. That's why I did the little countdown for you guys, for those of you that are wondering, is that giving yourself a countdown is very similar to, like, pulling up on a deadline, right? People always say, I work really good at the last second, right? That's why I always get my assignments in on time, because, you know, I leave it to the last moment, but then, you know, pressure makes diamonds or whatever. Why don't you just create your own pressure? Right? Why are you letting the other people dictate that for you? Instead, just give yourself the 3, 2, 1, go. And then whatever it is you want to do, just do it, man. Like, you don't have time to think. Don't give yourself time to think. That's what I've realized. Because if you give yourself time to think, you give yourself time to make excuses and reasons to not do it. If you say, I'll do it on Monday, you make a million excuses as to why you shouldn't do it on Sunday. And then Monday rolls around and you're not ready. Because, it's not perfect. It wasn't meant to be perfect, man. It's meant to get done. And I think even I find myself falling victim to the fact that we wait for perfect conditions to take a step.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You know why? I was literally just about to talk about that.
Really?
Literally, the next point I had in mind was that people care too much about the quality of their work that it prevents them from starting the work in the first place. You are too worried and concerned that it won't be perfect. And in the end, you end up with nothing because that fear of not achieving perfection stopped you from even starting.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm pretty sure I've used this quote as quote of the day before, but somebody once said that it's the start that stops most people.
Damn. No, I don't think you've used that as a quote.
Really? Okay, well, I should definitely use that someday.
Man, we're getting up there in quote of the days. I've been thinking about that.
Right?
We've been getting a lot of quote of the days now.
Yeah.
We got a whole month of quote of the day. Wait, quote of the week.
Yeah, quote of the week.
Why am I tripping?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
crazy.
regardless,
Yeah.
the point is that it's often just starting the task itself that stops people from doing it in the first place. You want me to give you the greatest example of this ever? Content creation. People are so worried that their content will not be up to the same standard as their favorite content creator, and so they don't do it.
Yeah.
Did you ever stop to think that it took your favorite YouTuber 6 to 7 years to get it right, to get it perfectly on track? Sure, some people blow up in 1 or 2 years, right? That's a fact. But look at the most successful people. The way I see it is, look at PewDiePie. He spent over a decade probably now building his channel. Look at Ryan Higa. He spent 7 years on YouTube building his success.
Wait. He was only 7 years?
I think so. I think he mentioned it in one of his videos.
I feel like that seems
No, actually, no, that's
it's
wrong. That's definitely wrong. That's wrong. That's definitely wrong. It's way
well
longer
over
than
10
that.
years.
Well over 10 years. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
I think because like How to Be Ninja was like 13 years ago.
True. Yeah. So look at that. He's almost coming up on 15 years of building.
We think again.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, well,
But either way, him and then one other person I was thinking about. Yes, this was an inspiring moment for me. It was about Iman Gaji. I don't know if all of you know him. I would assume so. He's a very famous entrepreneur, 24-year-old multimillionaire, extremely successful guy. And if you look at his channel, his life is on there. There are videos of him 6, 7, 8 years back when he was like 16 years old, starting his YouTube channel, starting different businesses, and showing people what a day in his life was like, talking about, you know what, one day I'm going to be rich. One day I'm going to be successful. I'm going to have businesses. My YouTube channel is going to be worth something. And you see this kid go through this journey and become the man that he is today. And I was watching one of his videos when I realized that he took that whole journey and he would not be in the place that he is today, being admired by all of us, if he didn't start somewhere. He started from the bottom with nothing, with such a rough video of just him recording himself on a camera while he walked. Literally, his videos were him on a Sunday afternoon taking his evening walk so that he can reset for the next week. Those were his videos. And he talked about his life, and it was just raw and unedited. And you don't have to think that, oh, I need to have this perfectly edited video just like him now so that I can start my content creation journey. No. The point is to improve as you go along. But you'll never improve if you don't start, right? And that's why we're here. We started this in the first place because, yeah, we have a lot to improve on for sure. And when I see comments that say, hey, you can improve on this, I take it to heart. I really focus on it, and I think, how can we implement this moving forward? But you're not going to have something to improve on without starting. And another thing that I realized is last week I mentioned the book that I'm reading right now, Built to Last: Habits of a Successful Habits of a Visionary Company. Okay? And in that book, one of the biggest things they talk about is how successful companies throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. A bunch of stuff, ideas, products, marketing tactics, they throw everything at the wall. And then they see what sticks. And then they add that to their, company, and they grow and they become better and more successful. And they keep doing that through a cycle of evolution. Without that, they wouldn't be able to evolve past certain times. They would simply fall off the second they faced a challenge. So the same thing is true about you. Just because you're so focused on perfection, you stop trying to start in the first place. And that's our biggest problem. So don't be afraid that it's not going to be perfect on the first try. You have time to get it right. Look, we didn't have... Wait, actually, I don't know if this was here the whole time. I think this was here the whole time.
That might be.
That shelf was not here this whole time. In fact, the table even being here was not the original setup. The walls weren't black. We didn't have proper lighting. We didn't have 2 cameras. We didn't have anything. It was terrible. And we hadn't learned a lot. And in fact, we still have a lot to go. But the point is we started. And now, look at us almost a year now, which is kind of crazy. I was going to say we're running up on a year on having this channel. And we have 230 subscribers, over 100,000 views. It's way more than we would have ever had if I sat there worrying so much that it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
I only was able to start when I cast aside that worry.
I'd say, for example, I don't actually know who said this, but there's a saying, slow motion is better than no motion, right? It's like everybody wants to make it big right away, but you don't need to. You want to be a millionaire right now, but it takes time. So instead of waiting around for the greatest opportunity of a lifetime, you just got to seize every single one that comes across. Because that's what they say is that, oh man, it's the ancient one from Doctor Strange. She has a quote, and she says something about how we aren't always ready for when life throws opportunities at us. But the point is that we kind of get ready along the way.
Huh.
I'm paraphrasing heavily because I don't actually fully know the quote. Maybe I'll pop it up sometime. But the point of the quote is that you're not always going to be in a position that's perfectly ready for every opportunity in front of you. And the truth is, some opportunities are going to slip through your hands. But the point is, you need to try and grasp every single one you can. Because every once in a while, there's going to be a fish that slips through. Mm-hmm. But if you cast a big net and you try and catch every single one, then you're going to catch a hell of a lot more than if you just stood on the riverbank, right? You need to put yourself out there to get things done. You need to just go, man. You stand around waiting for, the biggest salmon in the river to fall into your net. But the truth is, you are waiting for a fish to come instead of letting the fish come to you. You get what I mean? Like, instead of waiting for a fish to come to stick your net in the water, just throw your net in the water and see what lands. Because you might catch something even bigger. But if you wait and try and scan for the perfect opportunity, or like, if you want to get a task done, my room has to be clean. It has to be, all the conditions have to be perfect. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do it. I think it's also a mental game. A lot of the time people are like, I can't do my homework at home because there's too many distractions. And to me, I find that, not very, I don't think it's convincing. But again, I think instead of that, then why not just create a place where you can work, right? Whether it be at school or the library or completely isolated in your room with noise-canceling headphones or something like that. You can create an environment to get the work done. Just don't allow yourself to make time to make excuses.
Yeah. And the way I see it is, we've talked about all the problems with procrastinating, right? We've talked about why we procrastinate and overall that there's a biological reason why you procrastinate and a lot of the situations that we procrastinated in. Now the question is, as you all want to know, how do I stop procrastinating? How do I actually do the things I want to do? Let's jump into that. So the first thing I'd say when it comes to procrastination is breaking the task down into smaller steps. Truth is, if you had to think about, eating this giant plate of food, if you section it into smaller sub meals, it becomes much easier to eat, right? Think about somebody on a bulk, right? We would understand that very well. You have to eat a grand total of, let's say, on average, I'd say 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day to put on weight. 3,500 to 4,000 calories is a lot. But if you break it down saying, okay, in the morning, I'm going to have this much. At lunchtime, I'm going to have this much. Dinner time, I'm going to have this much. And you have that plan in place, you break it down, it becomes much easier. And then on top of that, as you go along, you learn new things like, oh, this meal works pretty well. It makes me feel good. It hits my macros. I'm going to stick with that. And then you keep going. But a lot of people say, damn, how the hell am I going to eat 4,000 calories? That's insane. And after one day of trying, they quit. That's why most people are out of shape. I'm pretty sure that there was a statistic saying that only 40 people in every 1 million have a six-pack.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which is crazy, right?
I mean, I can see that being very real because if you think about it, nowadays, like, the reason that healthiness has plummeted is not, obviously it's a big sign of not, exercising and taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But mostly because, a lot of the food that people are eating nowadays is really bad for them.
True.
But that's a crazy statistic.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I didn't even know that. And I was currently in the process at the time of being, I wouldn't say upset, but mildly annoyed because obviously I've put on a lot of weight now, right? And I'm not ready to cut yet because I haven't reached my ideal weight. But once I do, then I'll be ready to cut down and see lean muscle again and feel good about it. But at the time, obviously I don't feel good about it because I'm technically not really fat, but a little bit more fat than I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens when you put on weight. So as I was thinking about that, one of my friends sent me that statistic saying, bro, you don't really have to stress about it. Like, already you are trying to put on weight so you can cut down and be shredded. Most people aren't either. So they're just sitting there drifting away, being unhealthy, not even making an effort.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Especially with the gym, I feel like people have such a big misinterpretation around it. Because first off, I think we've definitely talked about this on the podcast. But when I first came to your gym, the first thing I realized is that, one, nobody cares about you. Absolutely nobody at the gym is there to look at you. Everybody is there to do their own thing. So a lot of people are scared of starting because they fear judgment, which is something we talked about on the last episode, I believe. Right? Yeah. So these people are very afraid that everybody is going to judge them. But most people are really living in their own worlds. And they don't really have the time or energy to even consider you. Like, it doesn't matter to them. And even then, first off, gym people are some of the nicest people I ever met. Like, I know some of them are roided out and raging sometimes, but 90% of the people in the gym are extremely kind people because they all understand that you're there to get better. That's the whole point of life, is to get better. So why would you be afraid of that? Why are you embarrassed that you're trying to be better? Why are you embarrassed that you're taking steps towards the right place? You're not there yet, but that's the point. You're never going to get there if you're too afraid to move.
Yeah, and like people who, for example, I don't like the term fat shaming because I think that we should be defining it. Well, it depends. If you're being insulting about it, then it's a different story. But the way I see it is at the end of the day, people want to promote a healthy lifestyle in others, right? You want to say, hey, you should get in the gym and you should get in shape because you owe it to yourself to do that. If I see, for example, either somebody who's large or somebody who's disabled in the gym, to me, it's very inspiring. Because number one, if I ever had a criticism about somebody saying, oh, you should be in shape, if they're in the gym, clearly they're doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
Right? I'll never understand people who hate on, fat people going to the gym. That's literally the whole reason why they're there.
Yeah.
To change the one thing that you're clearly hating on them
And if you think about it, that's the whole reason the gym is there.
Yeah.
Right? The point is to get better. You don't need to be perfect right now.
Yeah, nobody started off perfect.
Yeah.
Even take David Lade, for example, or literally any bodybuilder that we
Anybody,
look up
bro.
to.
Like, take
None of them
anyone.
were born with, the six-pack and giant traps and huge delts and enormous
20-inch
biceps.
biceps, like-
Exactly.
They didn't come out the womb looking like that, guys. Shocker. Believe it or not.
Except for maybe Ronnie Coleman. He's kind of an exception. But
Yeah, there's phenoms here and there. But the point is, most of these guys, or most people, they don't succeed just like that, right? It takes time and effort. That's why you can't put off things. Because I think the truth about procrastination, the sad and scary truth, is you don't have time to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It takes a lot of time to succeed. And you don't have a lot of time to be wasting, doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and, the truth is, when you think about procrastinating, the best thing to do is to try and mitigate the negative emotions around it. Because like I said earlier, one of the reasons why we procrastinate is because you're feeling stress and anxiety about it. So you start to stress, you tense up, you're like, oh, I don't really want to do this, and you run away from it, right? So the best way is to try and calm your mind, to get rid of these emotions. So I would say, number one thing is, I know this is going to sound a bit counterintuitive because I'm telling you not to procrastinate by also not doing the thing that you're procrastinating on. But just hear me out for a second. If you can clear your head and then get to work on it, it becomes much easier to do it. So the best thing that works for me, like I always say, is a bit of meditation. Even for a couple minutes to just sit in silence, let your brain relax for a minute, and then get to it, that works well. Or even reading a book for a few minutes. Something that helps you calm down and relax. And you can't say that being on your phone is what helps you calm down and relax, because that provides you with the dopamine and starts to take away from your drive to work.
Yeah.
Right? You want something that is genuinely relaxing, but also not so rewarding that you will not feel like doing work anymore. Remember, this is still based in biology, in your brain. There's still neuroscience behind this. So you can't just ignore that fact and ignore the chemical aspect of doing work. You need to incorporate both that and how you feel. So start by mitigating these negative emotions. Meditate for a couple of minutes. Walk around for several seconds, several minutes, and take deep breaths. Whatever you need to do that works for you, do it. And another thing is changing the scenery. That is one thing I learned that completely changed my life when it came to procrastination. One big thing I like doing is reading books about self-improvement or entrepreneurship or spirituality. Those three topics are very interesting to me, and philosophy too, right? When I read books about that, I'm learning a lot more. But I found it difficult to sit in my room at times and read, even though I set out to read every single day. It worked for a long time, but at some points it got monotonous. I didn't feel like doing it anymore. I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm sitting in this chair like I always do, reading this book again over and over and over again. So what did I do? I started sitting out on the balcony and reading there, because now I'm surrounded by bamboo trees. It's green. There's a koi pond. The waterfall's flowing. I'm listening to that, and it's so peaceful and relaxing. And I'm not saying you have to have, a giant backyard or any fish around you to be focused, right? You can find your own peace, whether that's going to a local park, going to a library, going somewhere else that changes the scenery of your work. That can be very helpful.
Yeah. I'd say it's almost giving yourself space from the thing that you're afraid of, right? It's like if you really want to deal, I mean, I guess there's two ways of going about it. One person will always run headlong right into the thing to deal with it. Another person will take some space from it. And I don't think there's a shame in that. I think that especially as you're starting to combat it, because I think it's just as much as procrastination is a bad habit, getting things done is a good one, right? So it takes time to build it. If you constantly just sit there and procrastinate over and over and over again, obviously it's going to get worse. But you can't expect yourself to be able to take all your procrastination habits and just, boom, eviscerate it as if you'll never procrastinate again. Because I know that full well both of us are sitting here, talking about how we've found, some solutions to procrastination, but we still do it, right? It's a bad habit, but we work on it. That's the point, is that you get better. So I would say sometimes you do need to take a little step back and also reflect on it. I'd say if you really reflect on the things that you have to do, they're usually not that complex. And what you said about breaking it down, I love that concept. One of my favorite concepts of life is that most problems are only complex in your mind. In the real world, there are no complex problems. There are just simple problems complicated in the mind. Most things can be solved in a very simple manner. We just make it extremely complicated. So whenever you have problems in your life or you have worries or work or anything, if you really think about it, they're not complex. I feel like procrastination seems like such a complex emotion. Or, I don't know if you can really call it an emotion. State of mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to do it, but you just can't. Right? That's how most of us feel. It's just like, I just can't. I'm too afraid to do it. But the point is that if you just took a step back and you really analyzed it, you'd understand that it's really not that difficult. That the homework that you are afraid to do is not that difficult. If you get stuck on a question, instead of giving up, what do? Read the textbook. Ask a teacher. Ask a friend. Ask ChatGPT for help, not for the answers. The point being that you have unlimited resources and solutions to your problems. You're just too afraid to look at them. Or you're too blinded by complexities.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quote from a movie, and I don't know what the movie is, but it's an interviewer asking the protagonist, I'm assuming protagonist, and they say, what's the worst advice you ever got from somebody? And he said, it's not that simple. And then they asked, why is it not that simple? And he said, no, that's the advice. It's not that simple. And she's like, what? And he's like, it is that simple. It just isn't easy. So the point is that a lot of these things, they may be difficult, but they're not complex. We instead complicate them in our minds to give us an excuse to not do them. But the reality of the situation is real life problems are simple.
You know the funniest thing is? I've mentioned that exact movie clip before in a previous episode.
Really?
It's the one that I don't know his name, but he's the actor from Whiplash.
Yeah, I know. From Whiplash and from Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah, he is in Top Gun. I actually haven't watched the movie, so...
Man, I can't believe I don't know his name. I feel bad.
Yeah, Whiplash was such a life-changing movie.
This is like the freaking Rowan Atkinson moment all over again.
Who?
The actor from Mr. Bean. That is his name.
Oh.
Yeah.
I knew it sounded
I know,
familiar.
it would suck because I remember I was editing the last video, and then I was at that part, and I was like, man, I can't remember his name, and then in my head, I was like, "Oh my god, it's Rowan Atkinson."
Wait, really? You remembered it?
I remembered it,
Oh.
And then I was like, "Oh my god, how did I forget this?" But then I googled to double check it.
Yeah.
But to the spelling and everything, and I was like, "Oh my god, I knew this the whole time." But yeah, I tossed up an editor's note, so hopefully you guys saw that.
It's actually very interesting how movies can fascinate you and completely change your perspective on things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, I remember watching Whiplash. That movie completely changed my perspective on a lot of things. Like, it was just crazy to see that obsession for what you love.
You know what's interesting, though? I think that I know this is a bit of a sidetrack here, but we'll quickly go over it. But I think that the meaning of Whiplash is actually misconstrued. Or at least from what I've heard. Because I think that we took the movie in the same way. But most people don't. And the way that I'm assuming you took the movie is how, his obsession... Did you find his obsession inspiring?
Yeah.
Right? Of how he wasn't willing to give up and all that. Most people viewed the movie as the opposite.
Like unhealthy obsession?
Yeah. His obsession was extremely unhealthy. And I see their point. Like, I can see how crazy obsession like that is very unhealthy. Because think about the way that he pushed away everybody around him that he actually cared
and
about.
also played until his knuckles bled and got into a car accident trying to get there
Yeah.
and dealt with all this suffering just to try and play the drums.
And man, it's a double-edged sword. Obsession is a double-edged sword.
Very true.
But I think if you make it play to your favor, it's the strongest card that you'll ever hold.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, the obsessed person is going to... Oh, it's literally Adam Sandler in that movie. Obsession is going to beat talent every single time.
Such a good movie. Hustle is a great movie.
You've watched it?
Yeah.
I need to watch it,
It's on Netflix. I love it. It was a good movie.
Okay, well, anyways, getting back on topic about killing your procrastination, another thing that will really help, like everybody always says, cut out the damn noise. Your phone, your laptop, your iPad, whatever it is that you don't need for your work, put it away. You need to put it in a different room. Lock it in a box. Put it in your closet. I don't care what you have to do. Get that thing out of your sight. You know what they say? Out of sight, out of mind. I take my phone, I put it on the highest shelf in my closet, which is covered by 2 mirror doors, so that I don't even think about going in to get it when I'm working. If I sit down, I say I'm going to work on my schoolwork, that's all I'm doing. I'm putting my phone away and I'm locked in. So learn to do the same, because if you can cut out the distractions, the work becomes that much easier.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And at the end of the day, you enjoy doing work when you're not distracted. That's the funniest thing to me, because when I sit there and I half-ass my job of doing schoolwork while watching Netflix or listening to music or sitting there and dividing my attention amongst multiple things, I do a half job on both of them. So I feel worse at the end of it, even though I accomplished the task. I feel bad because I didn't give it 100%. But if you were to just put the phone down, work hard on the assignment, and then go play hard and just sit on your phone for an hour, you not only did a good job on your assignment, but you feel good about taking the break. Why? Because you earned it. That's the biggest thing. At the end of the day, we are creatures driven by chemicals. And the brain has many chemicals in it that wire us to function a certain way. So you seek happiness, you seek delight, you seek joy. But if you didn't have to work for it, that's when it becomes unhealthy. That's when I can click my phone open at any time I want and see a bajillion things that could make me happy. And so I'm whisked away to this fantasy land, pulled away from reality, where I don't have to work to earn things that make me happy. I can sit there and find it for free with minimal effort.
You know what's funny about procrastination? Procrastinating a task is synonymous with procrastinating happiness. You ever think about the fact that, like what you just said, you feel happy when you actually do something? When you put off doing all these things, what are you really doing? You're putting off making yourself happy.
Damn, I did not think about it that way.
I just thought about it because there's a quote. I really wanted to bring this up. And the quote is, if you think the price of winning is too high, wait until you get the bill from regret. I heard it on a podcast and I was like, damn, it's deep because it means right now, it's not always about right now. And also, if you really think about the right now, you are putting off the things that would genuinely make you happy. Like, everybody talks about, oh my God, that great feeling when you finish like that super long assignment and you close all the tabs. Like, that feeling is nice. Why is it nice? You ever think about that? It's because it's relief. It's done. The pain's gone. But if you let it linger, don't you think that that's going to hurt a hell of a lot more? By letting this terrible thing that's ruining your life hang over your head over and over, day in, day out, don't you think that you're making the problem so much worse? You extend the problem, delay your happiness to make yourself more happy. But you see how it doesn't make sense? The equation doesn't make sense. The logic doesn't even make sense.
That's crazy. That's a very good way to put it, because the longer you put something off, the more stressed you feel about it, the more time you spend thinking about it, and the less time you can spend being happy because you're still thinking about it and not doing it.
There's a quote I really wanted to use, but I completely forgot what it was. I meant to write it down, but I guess I forgot. But the quote related to the fact that we spend more time procrastinating than it would actually take us to get a task done. Right? So, like, you're taking this assignment or whatever that'll take an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 5 hours to do, and you span it over the length of a week. Now you've spent, 150 hours, or 168, hours in a week thinking about this problem. Instead, you could have just gotten it done in 5.
Yeah.
Even if we take the low estimate and say that you only spend 50 hours thinking about this problem in a week, that's still so much time. 10 times what you would have spent if you had just done it. Your life becomes easier when you just do it. When you let go of the waiting, when you listen to Nike, and you just do it.
Actually, I would say listen to Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I think of just do it, actually, you know what? No, fair.
Yeah.
Nike and Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lastly, I was going to talk about Andrew Huberman. Everybody knows him.
Oh,
Respected scientist. I think
Actually,
he's a
I have
neuro.
no idea who this is.
What? You don't know who Andrew Huberman is?
No.
He's not like bald. He's got like shorter hair.
It's not going to help me remember
beard,
somebody I don't know.
mustache. Had a podcast with David Goggins. Actually, so many people have had podcasts with David Goggins now.
I mean, I really don't know.
Okay, you know what? Never mind. He's a super smart guy. Okay, point is, and I believe he studied at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, like neurology or something crazy like that. Okay. Point is, smart guy, knows what he's talking about, has access to a ton of research, and displays it on YouTube through podcasts. Right. And one thing he was talking about when discussing how to kill procrastination is how to properly rebound out of a dopamine trough. So what I mean by that is, you know, a wave has a crest, which is a high point, and the trough, which is the low point, right? And he said that the crash of dopamine following a dopamine high, the two are directly proportional. So let's say I go all the way up to here. After that dopamine is done, my crash is going to be way below at the exact same point on the opposite side.
Yeah.
And apparently, according to studies done, the speed and magnitude of dopamine on the high were directly proportional to the low. So like if I go from this low state of dopamine to this high state in 3 seconds, right after that dopamine hit is done, it'll take me 3 seconds to go from the middle point down to the crash. Right? It was a very interesting study.
Pretty cool.
So when I read about that, I was like, well, that's interesting. So if I do something that makes me really happy instantaneously, then the crash is going to be instantaneous as well. So now the question becomes, how do I actually get out of it? How do I rebound myself out when I hit this trough? And according to him, he says you should do something difficult, something you don't want to do. A lot of people, when they procrastinate, like to find an easy task to do instead. I find myself doing this all the time. Like if I have a school assignment to do, instead I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I want to be productive, so I'm going to clean my room. That is textbook procrastination right there. So when you have the opportunity to work on something, your first instinct, even if it's not what you're procrastinating on, should be to do something difficult. So for a lot of people, cold shower. I guarantee you, out of the people who watch this video, I'd say less than 10% of you take cold showers. Less than 10%, without a doubt.
I mean, considering how low our viewership is, honestly, I would go with 1%.
Probably. Would not be surprised. But the point is, there are many difficult tasks out there that once you do them, doing the task that you're procrastinating becomes much easier. And also, scientists found that, like I was saying, even if you crash, if you do a difficult task like taking a cold shower or exercising immediately, even if it's for a short period of time, you rebound yourself out of the trough immediately because your brain's like, oh my God, we just got a difficult task done. Yippee, let's get to it. So then you're back and ready to thrive again on your regular dopamine levels. And it allows you to pursue what you want, right? If you do something difficult, more difficult than the task, the task becomes easier, right? It's just a game of comparison and perspective.
Yeah. I find it so interesting because I find myself doing that so often. And I don't even notice it. It's like a trick you literally play on your mind where you say, I'm going to do something, and then you don't really do something.
True.
And it's interesting because I guess the hardest things give you the highest highs, right? It's like, it's just a scale, right? Whatever you put in, you get out.
Yeah.
Input, output, right? So you just gotta throw yourself at something instead of walking up to it, you know? If you have a problem, or if you have the biggest things, you just gotta go for it, you know? Start chipping away at it. And that's the thing is I feel like in the moment, maybe you don't get the whole assignment done. But if you can get at least one question done, it's better than nothing, right? I think also time makes people procrastinate. Like they'll get home and they'll be like, I gotta be somewhere in 30 minutes, so I don't have enough time to finish the whole thing. So I'm not gonna start. But the thing is, in those 30 minutes, you could have done something. You could have got some of it done. So I always hear people say, I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. But my friend, you always have time. There is time. You just need to find it. You need to sniff out where you're wasting your time. And of course, this isn't going to go for everybody. Yes, the person that works 2 jobs and then barely sleeps and then does the same thing over and over. Obviously, yes, time is different to that person. But to many of you out there, many of you who are fortunate enough to be able to be watching this podcast, you have time. There's plenty of time in a day to get so many things done. But the problem is, time is often broken up. And sometimes you don't have the increments to do everything all at once. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get started. Because I think that every time you take a step towards getting something done, it makes it a lot easier to do. Especially because the first step is always the hardest one.
Yeah.
That is the most difficult step, is taking that first one. But after that, each progressive step, I believe at least, gets easier. And for me, even if the assignment gets harder, I feel so much more motivated to do it. Because I feel like I've gotten so much of it done that this last little bit ain't nothing, right? You know, I'm already done halfway. I can go. I can keep going. So you just need to find a way to break into, that kind of a flow state where it's just bang, bang, bang. I can keep working. I can keep working.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can't always wait until you have enough time to do everything. Sometimes you just got to take whatever time you can and dedicate yourself to getting something done.
Exactly. And the last couple of things I wanted to say are related to the emotional aspect of it. Like I said earlier, obviously, these tasks can be stressful. Life can be stressful. That's a fact, right? We all go through problems. We all deal with stuff. The stuff isn't going anywhere. The only thing that can really change is your response to it. So I would say one big thing that a lot of people need to do is learn to forgive yourself. You're not perfect. You're only living this life for the first time too, right? You're learning as you go along. So don't beat yourself up about making mistakes. For example, let's say you procrastinate an assignment and you say, I need to do it, and then you mess it up and somehow the assignment doesn't get turned in. You can either sit there wallowing in despair saying, oh my God, I'm a worthless student. How could I not get that assignment in, bro? I had a week. I had all the time in the world and I didn't do it. Or you pick yourself up, say, all right, where do we move from here? What can I learn from the last time? All right, clearly I can't start the assignment the day before it's due. That doesn't work. I also can't start it 4 days before it's due because I get worried and start procrastinating. So I need to start a week in advance. Whatever it is that works for you, figure that out. That's the beauty of all this advice we give. Not everything is going to stick for you. I mentioned earlier that companies throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and take what sticks. So you need to be like a visionary company. Take the advice that we give. Take the advice that other people give. Throw it at the wall. See what sticks. What works for you? What brings results? And once you see that, you keep it. It's that simple. And then you just apply that day in, day out. Boom. Procrastination gone. Results achieved. Life better.
Just don't be demoralized if not everything sticks to that wall.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last thing is make tasks easy. That's the best way I can say it. Earlier on one of the episodes prior to this where I talked about bad habits and stopping them, we said make the barrier to entry for bad habits extremely high. So unplugging your console if that's your problem, or, keeping whatever addiction you have either locked away or not in the house at all, ideally. So if you want to do something good, you want to lower the barrier to entry as much as possible. For example, if I wake up early in the morning to go for a run, I don't want to be digging through my closet to pick out clothes. I want my clothes to be set out on the chair next to my bed, ready to go, so that when I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm ready to jump out of bed, get changed, and go. My running shoes are at the door waiting for me. So just like that, when you get home from school or from work and you need to work on something, whether it's reading, whether it's typing, whether it's writing, you have that pen and paper, that computer, that book set out on that table. So when you come home, procrastination is not an option.
That's a beautiful note to end it off, ladies and gentlemen. But before you go, it's time for quote
of
the
week.
Heram.
Quote of the week. Procrastination is the assassination of all destinations.
Damn, I didn't know you're a poet. Who said that?
That quote is from a young man named James Dumlin. Now, granted, I can't really say that he was the person who invented that quote, but he was where I heard it from, so I'm giving him the credit. And to those of you that don't know him, he started an Instagram channel called School of Hard Knocks, where he goes around interviewing millionaires, billionaires, successful entrepreneurs, asking them for advice, and then putting it online for people to see. So he's a very inspiring guy to me. He's extroverted like I am, and he goes out there and he does what he loves, and he hustles hard for it. So when I read that quote, I just knew that it had to be in a video someday. It just spoke so clearly and so eloquently in one sentence. So think about this quote. Whatever destination it is you are chasing, you will not get there if you continue to procrastinate. Whatever dreams you have will be killed off. So don't procrastinate. Get out there. Start what you're doing today. As soon as you click off this video, whatever it is you're putting off, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's cleaning, whether it's working out, you better go out there and do it.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the very end of episode 36 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. As we say on every episode, thank you guys so much for the support. Really appreciate everything. And remember that procrastination and the mindset of I'll do it tomorrow is the biggest killer of dreams. So go out there and do what it is you need to do. And just as Akita said earlier, do what you have to do right now. Regardless of what it is, do it now. Whether it's, folding your laundry or going to sleep. If you're watching this video late at night, just go to sleep, man. Just do the thing that you said you were going to do, the thing you promised you would make yourself do, and also make sure that you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.